Throughout the Demon Slayer story, Tanjiro played the role of the protective big brother perfectly, watching over Nezuko from the time she transformed into a demon until she became a human once more. But what if the power balance between the Kamado siblings was completely reversed? In today's video, we'll explore what would happen to the Demon Slayer story if Nezuko had Yoriichi's powers. Now, first up, let's establish what exactly Yoriichi's powers are, because he wasn't just the first total concentration breathing user. Being born with the Demon Slayer mark, Yoriichi was incredibly strong, and he supported the weight of his sick mother when she walked around even when he was only a child. On top of that, Yoriichi could naturally see into the transparent world, which allowed him to predict how his opponents would act based on their internal reflexes. This allowed him to defeat veteran swordsmen when he was just 7 years old, marking the point where he began overshadowing his brother Michikatsu. But on top of that, Yoriichi was also naturally capable of maintaining the selfless state, which made it impossible for demons like Muzan to sense any kind of killer intent from him. Returning to the Taisho era, Nezuko is born with all of Yoriichi's powers and has a birthmark resembling flames on her forehead, which is actually her Demon Slayer mark. Nezuko displays incredible strength and endurance from a young age, and she effortlessly lifts heavy bags of coal and runs across the snowy mountains without getting tired. While Nezuko's abilities are noticed by her parents, they don't make a big deal about it, and the Kamado siblings have a normal childhood just like in the original timeline. Now, this is where things change radically. Because Nezuko is actually really strong, then she'll probably end up helping Tanjiro when he goes to the village to sell coal. So on the night that Muzan attacks, both Tanjiro and Nezuko are away from home, selling coal in the village. When they return to find their family slaughtered, the tragedy is just as devastating, but this time there's no demon transformation. The entire Kamado family has been killed by Muzan's attack, except for the two siblings who were away. And when Giyu turns up to investigate, he finds two grieving children instead of a demon. Seeing that the two children no longer have a purpose in life, Giyu makes an unusual offer for them to train as demon slayers under the former water Hashira, Orokodaki Sakonji. Tanjiro's training takes on a completely different dynamic in this timeline, and the siblings train together under Urokodaki, learning water breathing side by side. Nezuko, with her natural abilities, masters all the forms of water breathing in just a couple of months, but Tanjiro still needs a full year of training until he's ready for the final selection. This creates an interesting power dynamic, because in this timeline, Tanjiro isn't the one pushing forward. Instead, he's struggling to keep up with his talented younger sister. Urokodaki alerts the upper ranks of the Demon Slayers about Nezuko's potential, but unlike the original timeline where the Kamado siblings meet the Hashira together, Nezuko is summoned alone after completing her training early. But this means Tanjiro is left behind, still training with Urokodaki for about half a year while his sister begins taking missions. So how do the main arcs of the Demon Slayer story change? Well, for starters, every mission in the opening stages of the story changes completely. Consider the Asakusa arc, where Tanjiro probably ends up being injured by the swamp demon without Nezuko to help him out. Even if he escapes that fight unscathed, the battle against Susumaru and Yahaba won't go well with just Yushiro for support. But here's where the plot thickens, because Tamayo began developing her human transformation drug after meeting Nezuko, but in our timeline, Nezuko isn't even a demon. This means that the whole process of Tanjiro sending the blood of 12 Kizuki demons to Tamayo simply doesn't happen, setting back her research significantly. Tanjiro's first mission after the Asakusa arc takes him to the Tsuzumi mansion, where he encounters and befriends Zenitsu and Inosuke just like in the original story. The Mount Naragumo arc is where Tanjiro reunites with Nezuko, as this was a major deployment, and not a mission for just Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. Just like in the original timeline, our main cast of characters start out by fighting against the Spider Family, gradually coming closer to Rui. When Tanjiro begins fighting Rui, things initially seem hopeless, as he just cannot keep up with the Lower Moon 5's webs. But when his back is against the wall, Nezuko arrives as backup and slashes through Rui's webs to free Tanjiro. This is where we see the full extent of Nezuko's abilities for the first time, because she's just as dominant in this fight as Giyu was. By looking into the transparent world, Nezuko can see Rui's webs before they emerge from his body, so when she slashes his neck, Nezuko actually intercepts the trick where Rui removes his head and held it in place with threads. This is a critical moment in our story, because being pushed by Rui was the key for Tanjiro to awaken sun-breathing, but now he's been saved by his sister instead. Tanjiro and his friends are sent to the Butterfly Mansion to recover, but since Nezuko performed a Hashira-level feat by killing Rui, she trains directly under Shinobu. When Rengoku is sent to investigate the Mugen Train, Nezuko doesn't join the others on the mission, as the Demon Slayer Corps don't think this mission needs two high-level Demon Slayers. This is the battle where Tanjiro awakens sun-breathing, because even with him and Inosuke working together, they can't generate enough power to break through the Mugen Train and behead Enmu. The Hinokami Kagura gives Tanjiro the strength to finish off the Lower Moon 1, but when Akaza appears, there's nothing much he can do to help. The Flame Hashira falls in battle against the Upper Moon 3, and Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke barely escape with their lives. When Nezuko hears the news, she's devastated that she wasn't there to protect her brother, but there's still an even more concerning development here. Since Tanjiro didn't know about the potential to use the Hinokami Kagura in battle, he couldn't ask Rengoku about it either, meaning that he doesn't get directed to the Rengoku family archives. This seriously sets back Tanjiro's ability to develop sun breathing further, even though he continues practicing it after recovering from the battle. The Entertainment District arc is where Nezuko truly begins to shine, because now her sword skills are on par with a Hashira, while Yoriichi's powers make her almost faster and stronger than Gyomei. The battle against Daki and Gyutaro ends up being utter carnage, because even though the Upper Moon 6 has incredible destructive power, Nezuko's presence evens the playing field. But it gets even better, because Nezuko was born with the Demon Slayer mark, and thus anyone who fights alongside her and undergoes extreme strain will awaken it through resonance. This means that not only Tanjiro, but Inosuke and Zenitsu also achieved their mark states, leading to a victory against the Upper Moon 6 with 0 casualties. Tengen still retires after the battle because of the promise he made to his wives, but in his place there are now 4 marked Demon Slayers. The Swordsmith Village arc progresses in exactly the same way, with Gyoko and Huntenku being defeated soundly. Even though Nezuko doesn't catch Muzan's attention by becoming immune to the sun, the Demon King still plots a counterattack after losing 2 more Upper Moons. The Hashira training arc takes place just like it did in the original timeline, but this time, the Demon Slayers are aware of the transparent world and selfless state thanks to Nezuko. So while all the Demon Slayers manage to awaken their marks, Gyomei and Giyu also master the selfless state. But before everyone can reach that level, Muzan strikes the Ubuyashiki mansion, and the Demon Slayers are pulled into the Infinity Castle. Shinobu still faces Doma and sacrifices herself according to her plan, leaving Kanao and Inosuke to finish the job. Tanjiro and Giyu face off against Akaza, but this battle goes very differently because Giyu has access to the transparent world from the start, and can easily bypass Akaza's compass needle. Nezuko, with Yoriichi's abilities, is a force of nature in this arc, and she can fight any Upper Moon one-on-one without backup, meaning the perfect fight for her is the battle against the Upper Moon 1. Nezuko doesn't get there in time to save Muichiro from being injured, but thanks to her, Genya doesn't get slashed by Kokushibo as he's got bigger problems to worry about. Even though Nezuko isn't on the same level as Yoriichi, having Gyomei and Sanemi for support makes her even more dangerous, and Kokushibo is quickly overwhelmed in this battle. But the Sunrise Countdown is where things get tricky, because Tamayo's research was set back by Nezuko not being transformed into a demon. This means that Muzan is stronger than he was in the original Demon Slayer story, and they absolutely need sun breathing to take him down. But Tanjiro hasn't had much time to perfect his techniques, and the Demon Slayers can't rely on him to finish the job. So instead, the final countdown becomes a battle of attrition, with Nezuko leading the charge and creating openings, while the other Hashira desperately try to keep Muzan out in the open until the sun comes up. Genya being alive is a game changer in this timeline, because eating Muzan's flesh gives him an absolutely insane blood demon art, allowing him to block and counterattack the Demon King's spikes and flesh whips. When the sun finally begins to rise, Muzan attempts to escape just like in the original timeline, but Tanjiro has been growing throughout the battle by accessing Sumiyoshi Kamado's memories. As he begins to transform, Tanjiro dashes forward with the 13th form of sun breathing, slashing through all 12 of Muzan's vital organs as the sun rises over the horizon. There's no dramatic creation of a new Demon King this time, as Muzan's remains disintegrate in the sunlight. But this victory comes with a price. Tanjiro has pushed his body so far beyond its limits that he's comatose for weeks, and when he finally wakes up, he learns that several Hashira died in the final battle. The Demon Slayer Mark's curse also weighs heavily on everyone's minds, as Nezuko doesn't yet know that she will live beyond 25 thanks to being born with the mark like Yoriichi. So what do you think of this timeline? Is Nezuko with Yoriichi's powers too overpowered, or does having a weaker Tanjiro balance it out? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to check out the other awesome Demon Slayer videos on our channel.